Have you ever noticed how the women who refuse to be controlled, who set their own pace, who carry themselves with quiet confidence, those are the women men can't seem to let go of? And maybe you've asked yourself, why? Why do men lose interest in the women who bend over backwards to please them, but stay obsessed with the ones who don't bow down? Isn't it strange? He says he wants peace, but he chases the fire. He says he wants someone easy, but he stays drawn to the woman who challenges him, who won't be molded, who knows her own worth. And maybe deep down you wonder if your willingness to compromise has made you invisible. Could it be that the very thing you thought would keep him, the constant giving, the endless understanding, was what made him drift? And could it be that the reason he stays hooked on women he can't control is because he finally feels what every man secretly craves: respect for someone he cannot break? You've felt it before, that hollow ache in your chest when you realize that all your giving, all your sacrificing, all your bending never seemed to make him stay. You silenced your voice to keep the peace. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You poured out love, hoping it would be enough to make him see you as unforgettable. And yet, he drifted. He grew distant. He acted as though your loyalty was ordinary. And then you see the other women, the ones who don't bend, the ones who hold their ground, the women who don't chase, who don't apologize for their truth, who walk away without flinching if they're not respected. And you notice something you can't unsee. Those are the women he can't seem to let go of. The women he stays drawn to, even when he says they're complicated. And deep down, a question gnaws at you. Why was my endless giving not enough, but her boundaries are magnetic? Why did my devotion make me invisible, while her refusal to be controlled makes her unforgettable? It stings in ways you don't talk about out loud. You replay the times you held your tongue to avoid an argument, only to watch him lean closer to the woman who speaks her mind freely. You think about the nights you stayed up late, waiting for his call, forgiving his silence without a word, only to realize he never stopped chasing the woman who wasn't afraid to ignore him. And it makes you question everything you thought love was supposed to be. You start to wonder if maybe you gave too much. If maybe by trying so hard to be the one who kept him happy, you erased the very mystery that made him chase in the first place. You think about all the moments where you thought being soft, being agreeable, being endlessly patient would win him over. And instead you're left with the ache of watching him stay hooked on someone who didn't bend in the ways you did. It feels like betrayal, not by him but by love itself. You thought love meant devotion, compromise, sacrifice. You thought it meant showing him you'd always be there. But the more you gave, the more invisible you felt. And the truth that hurts most is this: he only seemed to be drawn to you when you stood in your power, when you weren't begging for his affection, when you were simply being you, unapologetic and whole. And that's the cruel paradox every woman feels deep inside. You gave your everything, and it didn't make him stay. You pulled back pieces of yourself, and suddenly he leaned in. You watch him obsess over the woman who cannot be controlled, and you ache with the question, why wasn't I enough when I was giving him all of me? It's a quiet kind of pain, the kind you carry alone. Because how do you explain that your love, the very thing you thought would make him cherish you, became the reason he grew too comfortable? How do you admit that the more you tried to be what he wanted, the more he drifted toward the women who refused to be shaped by his desires? And so you sit with the haunting realization, maybe the reason he stays drawn to the women he cannot control is because control was never what made love last. And that truth cuts deep, because it forces you to face the emptiness of giving too much, only to be left wondering why it was never enough. So why does it hurt so much to see him pulled toward the women who refused to bend, while you were left feeling invisible after giving him everything? Why does he stay hooked on the ones who won't be controlled, while the ones who sacrifice the most often end up with nothing but doubt? The truth is, it's not because you weren't enough. It's not because your love wasn't powerful. It's because men respond to something that goes beyond comfort. They respond to challenge, and not the kind of challenge that comes from playing games or withholding love, but the deeper challenge of being with a woman who stands in her own power, who cannot be molded into something smaller just to make him feel bigger. When you gave everything, when you made yourself endlessly available, when you silenced parts of yourself to keep him happy, he may have appreciated it for a while, but over time it gave him a sense of control. He knew your love wasn't going anywhere. He knew he didn't have to fight for your presence because you had already handed it to him unconditionally. And while that kind of devotion should inspire gratitude, what it often creates instead is complacency. The urgency fades, the mystery fades. He relaxes into the idea that you'll always be there, and without realizing it, he stops seeing you as someone he could ever lose. But when a woman cannot be controlled, something very different happens. She may love deeply, but she refuses to disappear into someone else's shadow. She says no when she needs to. She speaks her truth, even if it ruffles his pride, and she makes it clear that her world does not revolve entirely around him. And that unsettles him in a way he cannot ignore, because now, instead of feeling control, he feels respect. Instead of assuming her love is guaranteed, he lives with the quiet fear that if he doesn't step up, she could walk away. And that fear keeps him drawn, keeps him curious, keeps him chasing. Here's the hidden truth most women overlook. Men don't stay obsessed with what they control. They stay obsessed with what they respect. They don't crave a woman who erases herself for them. They crave a woman who reminds them she exists fully even without them. It's not the endless sacrifice that keeps him. It's the boundaries. It's not the silence of avoiding conflict that captures his heart. It's the courage of a woman who won't let herself be silenced. And maybe that's why you've felt so invisible in the past, because in trying to love the way you thought you were supposed to, you gave so much of yourself away that he never had to rise to meet you. He never had to fear losing you, because you taught him that no matter what he did, you'd stay. That doesn't mean you weren't valuable. It means your value was hidden under the weight of all your giving. And the women he stays drawn to, they never hide it. They let their worth shine in the way they carry themselves, in the way they refuse to trade dignity for approval. And that's why he can't forget them. That's why they linger in his mind long after the conversation ends. It's not about being colder, harsher, or distant. It's about remembering that love without boundaries loses its spark. Because when a man realizes he can't control you, when he knows you have the strength to walk away if you're not valued, that's when he sees you as irreplaceable. But here's the part most women never realize. When you finally understand that men stay drawn to women they can't control, the question becomes, how do you live this truth with dignity and self-respect? It doesn't mean you need to play games, act distant, or harden yourself into someone you're not. It means learning to stand in your own power without apology. It means remembering that your love is a gift, not a guarantee, and the way you carry yourself can either teach him to take it for granted or inspire him to treasure it. The first step is to stop giving away your power so easily. Emotionally, this means no longer making his moods, his choices, or his attention the measure of your worth. You don't shrink yourself just to keep him comfortable. Practically, this looks like pausing before you say yes to everything he asks, or before you rearrange your life to fit around his schedule. Imagine this. He calls you last minute to meet up, expecting you to drop everything because that's what you've always done. Instead, you smile and say, "I'm busy tonight, but I'd love to plan for another time." In that moment, you're not being difficult, you're showing him that your world doesn't revolve around him. And when a man realizes he doesn't control you, he starts respecting you in ways he never did before. The second step is to protect your voice. Too often, women bite their tongues out of fear that speaking up will drive him away. But silence doesn't make love stronger, it makes you invisible. Emotionally, this means trusting that your feelings are valid, that your needs matter just as much as his. Practically, it means saying things like, "That hurt me," or "This doesn't work for me," without apologizing for how you feel. Picture this. He dismisses something important to you, and instead of brushing it aside to avoid conflict, you look him in the eye and say calmly, "I need you to take this seriously because it matters to me." In that moment, you're not trying to control him. You're reminding him you cannot be silenced. And nothing commands respect more than a woman who stands firmly in her truth. The third step is to live a life that is full, outside of him. A man can sense when he's your only source of happiness, and while it may feel like devotion, it often breeds complacency in him. Emotionally, this is about rediscovering the passions, friendships, and dreams that make you feel alive in your own skin. Practically, it means making time for your career, your hobbies, your people, even when he's around. Imagine this. Instead of waiting by the phone, you're at a dance class, you're laughing with friends, you're pursuing a project that excites you. When he reaches out, he finds you fulfilled, vibrant, whole. That energy is magnetic because it tells him you are not a woman who can be contained. You are a woman he has to rise to meet. And finally, the most powerful step is to hold the quiet courage to walk away if your worth is not honored. Emotionally, this means you stop fearing the loss of a man more than the loss of yourself. You remind yourself that you would rather be alone with your dignity than together without it. Practically, it means setting boundaries and keeping them, even if it costs you the relationship. Imagine this. He starts slipping back into disrespectful patterns, assuming you'll tolerate it like before. Instead of clinging tighter, you step back. You say, "I love you, but I will not stay where I'm not valued." That choice doesn't come from bitterness. It comes from strength. And it's often the very thing that makes him realize that losing you is a risk he cannot afford. These steps are not about punishing him. They're about teaching yourself that you never have to trade your self-respect for love. Because love built on control doesn't last. But love built on respect does. And when you carry yourself this way, you don't just hold his attention, you hold his admiration. You stop being the woman who fears being left, and you become the woman no man ever wants to lose. There comes a point in every woman's story where the pain of being overlooked, controlled, or underestimated transforms into something else, something far more powerful. That point is when you finally realize that you don't need to make yourself smaller for love. You don't need to silence your voice, erase your needs, or bend yourself into someone else's image just to be chosen. Because the truth is, you were already worthy of love exactly as you are, unapologetic, independent, and whole. Think about it. All those times you gave too much, all those times you softened your edges just to make things easier for him, did it ever make him stay? Or did it only make you feel emptier? The moments that made him notice you, the moments that made him lean in, were never the times you erased yourself. They were the times you stood firmly in your power, the times you said no, the times you held your ground, the times you refused to be controlled. That's when he looked at you with new eyes. That's when he felt something deeper, because deep down, men don't fall in love with control. They fall in love with freedom. And nothing is more captivating than a woman who is free. You should feel proud of the times you've carried yourself with dignity, even when it wasn't easy. Proud of the moments you wanted to stay silent but chose to speak. Proud of the nights you stood alone rather than settle for less. Those are not weaknesses, those are victories. They are the proof that you are not only capable of love, but capable of choosing yourself in the face of fear. And that is something no one can ever take away from you. Hope lives in that truth. Because the love you've always dreamed of, the love that sees you, values you, respects you, doesn't require you to be controlled. It doesn't ask you to surrender your strength. It thrives on it. The right man won't want to put you in a box. He'll want to stand beside you while you shine. He won't try to break your independence. He'll admire it. He won't feel threatened by your voice. He'll listen to it, lean into it, and love you even more because of it. You are not here to be controlled. You are here to be celebrated. You are not here to beg for scraps of attention. You are here to be honored as the rare woman you are. And once you fully believe that, once you carry yourself with that truth stitched into your soul, the entire way you experience love changes. You no longer wonder if you're enough. You no longer fear being too much. You no longer question if you can keep a man by bending, because you finally understand you don't have to. So walk forward with your head high, knowing that your strength is not a burden but a magnet. Your independence is not a threat but a blessing. And your refusal to be controlled is exactly what makes you unforgettable. You don't have to chase love. You don't have to beg for respect. When you carry yourself with dignity, love comes to meet you on your terms. And the man who is truly meant for you will never try to dim your fire. He'll do everything he can to keep it burning bright. And if you need words to carry with you, let them be these. Your power doesn't push love away, it draws the right love closer. The woman who cannot be controlled is the woman who can never be forgotten. You were never meant to be tamed, you were meant to be treasured.